everyone. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real with Adi Mopidevi. I have a great leader to have a chat with today, Dylan Massey. I got a chance to connect with him before, have a brief chat about what he does. I've got some exciting updates for all of us to hear from his journey. He's a director of IT at Red Star, and he's been pretty informative for me, at least, on how the organization has transitioned in the last few years for them and how he has actually overcome quite an interesting set of challenges. I'll let Dylan speak a little more. Dylan, welcome to Keeping It Real. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Adi. I like being here. It's a good place to be. Yeah, I'm a IT director at Red Star Contract Manufacturing, which is a tiny plastic injection molding. We're about a mid-sized business here in the Midwest, right off US 30 in Indiana. We do a lot of contract work, so that brings in a lot of different customers with a very diverse customer base. Right now, focusing really strongly on medical and so sterilized packaging. A little bit of old tech, a little bit of new tech, and a lot of customers out there. Very dynamic place to be working.
I think that's the first part of the question. When you say dynamic workplace, especially when it comes to contract manufacturing, and you have a range of customers coming in, I'm assuming that there's a lot of compliance, there's a lot of customized requests from each of the customers. How do you actually administer all of this? Talk to us a little bit about the scale.
So the scale, like I said, we've got about 70 to 150 customers. We do some vendor work with some specialists, so some design engineers that are working on more specialist projects. And yeah, dynamics the name of the game. Flexibility is another keyword in the markets that I think a lot of people in IT are seeing. We want this flexible workforce. It's flexibility in data. You talk about growth. Data used to be held at Red Star in very tribal knowledge, and now we're seeing that move into the digital space. I was onboarded 3 years ago. There was no IT department. So the last 3 years have been rebuilding the foundation, but also rebuilding how you get that information around. So right now we use quite a variety of services. We've got Grand Avenue, which is document control for quality, specifically for ISO under the FDA, as well as we make use of the Azure 365 workspace for licensing. One of the big challenges right now is actually getting all that information to come together to support a new structure. So we are actually in middle of going back to our people instead of our technology, going back to the strength and rebuilding that flexibility with our data, getting people to learn how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah, I can only imagine how the transition would have been. And for the benefit of the audience, would you also actually talk a little bit about the relationship that Star had with Vision and how the transition happened so that they get a little
Yeah.
more context?
Yeah, so Wishbone was the design powerhouse of children's orthopediatrics. It was really the brainchild of a couple people coming together that wanted to buy the best technology out there and get it in the hands of children. Children's orthopedics is very undersupported. Not a lot of design work happening there, despite having a very high market cap. That ended up falling through. As the IT guy coming in and trying to clean up the pieces, you could see a lack of communication, too much flexibility, data everywhere. Then just asking compliance to come in and monitor all that data, you had a very fractured company within its data. So Wishbone was divested from, and now we are moving into the age of Red Star, which was our manufacturing base. You're seeing a company collapse and then very quickly regrow to fill the role. So while we lost a lot of the static and the noise and the data, it all collapsed, and it's just a lot better connected now. That's all in one building. I know work from home's a big thing. It's interesting. The power moved down. Hard to explain that.
I know. I remember you mentioning that despite where you've gone down on people, the company still had a good growth path, right?
Oh,
Uh,
amazing. Yeah.
right. Amazing growth
You,
path.
despite all of the negatives that can come out of, a company closure, Red Star bounced back better than ever. And it
Wow.
really goes to our team. I think we highlighted that it's teamwork. The people have the flexibility to catch all that information, learn very quickly, understand how to work with each other. It's the backbone of our business, really. So, yeah, we had a bad start of the year and we bounced back. This is actually one of the most profitable years Red Star's ever had. We are gearing up for 2025, and I think it's going to be a good one. We got some good news since the last time we even talked. So, really
Nice.
excited for the future.
So I think especially when team comes together, you can see wonders happening. But what also you think was the glue factor for the team, and also any strategic decisions you made where the team actually aligned with that prospered this growth?
I think it's having your Q translators. So you got a lot of tech. So Wishbone had a lot of design. They had a lot of good ideas, some of the world-class sterile packaging technologies from other teams, but they didn't have the translators for that data. They didn't have the SMEs. They didn't have the people who could drive those technologies and those ideas to the product line. And I think that's where Red Stars really excelled, is lost a lot of the mid people, which was a struggle, still is a struggle, getting our HR, getting our quality systems in line to support our customers.
Mhm.
But you have so much more of an impact on the floor. So concepts that are very big, design, FDA regulations, international regulations, you can still walk down to the floor and talk to somebody down there. If the part's not working, it's caught that much quicker. And that's just not something that technology was originally doing, but now it's connecting all those people. It's rapidly getting people the information they need to continue that. It's that applied software technology to the floor level that's so much fun to work at and in manufacturing that I haven't had in my job roles before. That was the key. It was the application of all these great ideas, customer to our own product line that we're still supporting, and then running with it.
As a person heading IT and someone who's responsible for probably keeping the lights up and running, especially from IT point of view, in the whole transition, what were your biggest learnings? What was the thing? Wow, this is one or two I would really highlight.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure on tech right now, especially since
Mhm.
COVID. We very rapidly got hit with work from home. That was the key word. And now you look at the environment that we're all in, and security is the name of the game. You've got a lot of security threats up. And while those are very important and something that I've always prided myself on, I had to get humble. I had to go back to talking to that team, being that translator, really getting back to the information of information technology and learning to be that translator. I think tech is a big echo chamber where we all like to use abbreviated words and technical terminology, but finding a way to dumb that down, such a bad way to place it, but translate it for your team, make it applicable. It was a very humbling experience. I spent 3 years going from basically hitting the ground running, building a department to
Mhm.
I thought I had everything okay and everything was pulled out from underneath me. And you got to get back to basics really quick. I think this is the first job and the first environment that back to basics was learning how to talk to people
Mhm.
and really ensuring that the technology is there for them to do their job. I think you're starting to see the other thing is losing a little bit of control. Defense, what we're always told, you got to have this level of control. You got to have this. You got to have this.
Yes.
Being able to let go and give people the technology to be this highly adaptable, flexible workplace is hard. In today's environment, I think there's a lot of pressure from vendors and outside staff that everything's on the IT. I
Yeah.
work in a mid-sized business. Everything the light touches is under IT. You got to fix a light one day, and then the next day you're buying engineering software. So it's kind of it's very humbling.
It's a very interesting way you've said it. This is what I've seen in my experience as well, especially being in the medical device space. Every shift, you call it COVID or technology or automation, robotics, right? Every time there is equal amount of learning and also a very equal amount of unlearning. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh no, I had an impression about this like this at this point of time, but then you know what? Actually, we can do it differently. Were there any moments where you like that in this journey?
I'm sure there were many. The rigidity. I've always been a systems guy. I like making sure that we're dealing with the core problem and not the symptom. I came from hardware. I was a copier technician for the longest time. It was pounded into me that you
Okay.
got to fix the core issue. But that comes with a lot of rigidity. And in this company, again, it's unlearning that. You are the ultimate gatekeeper,
Yep.
but you got to learn to keep the gate open too. While
Yeah.
everybody's telling you all these security concerns and everything's going to happen, you got to put that trust out there for your team to step up. That was my main lesson. If I had to shrink it all down, that was probably a lot of lessons, but that's what it looks like where I'm sitting now.
It takes a lot of self-awareness and self-accountability to actually internalize it and bring it out as a action item for yourself. So kudos to you for doing that. But
Oh, thank
help
you.
me understand this. I'm sure, especially on the injection modeling, whatever Red Star is into, there's a lot of advent of robotics. If I'm not wrong, you would have gone through that,
Yeah. So we're
right?
bringing them in, and yeah, we can go down that. That's another lesson that. Thank you for getting me back on track. Maybe. So Red Star started 20 years ago, and they were designing the molding machines.
Hmm.
They did it so well that their customers said, hey, instead of having you guys come out here, we're just going to ship you back the machine and you guys run it. So it went from a couple of people in a garage building these injection molding machines to now we got to do a company. So
Hmm.
Red Star has just always been this continuous growth. And the cool thing is now is Red Star's onboarded previous owner is now back with us. So the guy who was originally the engineer on the
Okay.
machines
Okay.
is now the head of engineering, and
Okay.
we are building robots to work on our machines.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's this sudden realization of getting all the way back to the basics, even back to our production level, and getting everyone involved again. One of the big struggles that we're having right now with this level of tech is we own all of it. We own the robots, we
Hmm.
own the molding machines, we own the sterile packaging, everything's vertically integrated. But when you go to call to help, very often you have to sit in a room and realize that, hey guys, we're the experts. So you have to foster those relationships. You don't have the same level of security. You have to trust your own people. And
Yeah.
if you can't trust your own people, you have to learn how to train your own people. And if that's not 2025 for us, I'm not sure what is. That continued sustainability training in a
Yeah.
market full of generalists. You have to have specialists. They're homegrown right now, at least from my perspective. And supporting them, you're learning and they have to learn. And there's no rigidity. You have to have organization, but you learn something new every day in this job. I know that's so cliche, but when you're a contract manufacturer, your customers are training you, your previous staff are training you. Every opportunity is great. And yeah, just recording it, making it easier for the next guy is the heart and soul of where I sit.
Absolutely. So, considering, for example, say robotics was a bigger shift, it brought in a range of impact to how business itself runs and how customers also, your customers perceived your business would have changed. Do you see a similar opportunity with AI while you move forward, or what are your thoughts about it?
So I'm going to have a bad take, and I'm going to continue to have this bad take, maybe to some people, but I hope people do listen. I think AI is a great individual tool. I think that you as an individual can use that tool to benefit yourself greatly. But what we don't see where I'm currently sitting, or I haven't had an instructor to show me yet, is how you encapsulate an entire village worth of data and then get that malleable enough to continue using it. What I mean by that is SMEs, subject matter experts. If we would install an AI system, there is a lot of temptation just to let that start making decisions.
Hmm.
Keeping someone on staff who's engaged, who has the authority, and that can constantly update that data,
Hmm.
it's such a hard position. Furthermore, it's not just AI. When it's you and the AI, you know what you want. When it's the company and the AI, it's a different story, right? Because everybody needs something. We have quality for FDA, we have lot release, we have engineering quality standards, and having a computer make those choices and have that locked in
Hmm.
lose a lot of the flexibility. And I think right now, robotics gives us flexibility, right? We can see problems, and just like a contract manufacturer, we can manufacture the solution.
Hmm.
AI to us is still, we're missing that translator. We're missing somebody who can come in, understand our needs on such personal level as an organization, needs that we might not even have defined yet ourselves,
Hmm.
and to apply that to technology and just let that run wild. Again, we got to find the right person. I think that's AI right now. I think the future of AI, everybody talks about tech. You have to get back to information. You have to get back to your basics. It really does show you what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger the company, I challenge people to take a look around and really think about what you don't know,
Mhm.
because AI will make it abundantly clear what data gaps you're missing.
I think, though I see what you're saying, I've also come across companies which probably have taken that step to figure out by themselves or working with other partners or even companies or products for that matter. For example, in our conversation, you did mention so there is this tribal knowledge what you have within the company, and especially in an organization like yours, it's going to be even more important for
Right,
you as you grow. So,
right.
how do you see making effective and efficient use of this tribal knowledge as you grow and as you scale?
Right now, it's framework. I think that when we think about AI, it's a good framework. A framework, again, is my job's making it easier for the next guy. I never want somebody to come into the static that I had when I started. But getting somebody who worked on the machines 20 years ago, our maintenance staff who can fix these machines and make them sing, getting him to speak data, real KPI, getting that tribal knowledge from him and his 20 years of perspective, and then putting that behind a machine, it's that translator bit in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there is an amazing consultant agency out there. I've had a lot at my door and I haven't seen that level of expertise. And I don't want to say arrogance, that might be too strong. But sometimes people come in and they act like this is the newest thing. It knows what it needs to do, and we know what we need to do. But you have to respect the people that were 20 years ago that built a very large majority of what you're still building product on. And it's getting the tribal knowledge into a framework. And that's the education. That's 2025. That's getting a guy who's worked on machines for 20 years to teach a new kid right out of high school how to work on these machines to the same efficiency. That's the future of our scale of manufacturing. Robotics is great. It's code and you can interact with it and it's right there and it's making parts. I think AI is still a little nebulous, but again, use it as a framework, find out what you don't know, make your custom KPIs matter and give power to your people. And I think that's the recipe of success. And if you can do that with AI, hey, you're probably the future, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to lie, that's not the future, but
Yeah, I think it's probably going to dawn at some point of time. But when I read this book, The Goal, I'm not sure if you've been through it, it talks about a manufacturing facility and then they have these robots deployed on their manufacturing line, only to realize that the robots are actually slowing them down.
it can happen. It can happen. And you put so much resources into the
Yes,
robots. And that's why I'm worried about AI, right? Is you put all the research, you do the SMEs,
absolutely.
you increase the pay, and then you find out, but do you have the person on staff with the authority to question the AI?
Hmm.
It's that empowering framework that I haven't seen yet with AI.
Yep.
It's the companies respecting their data enough to anoint a group of people, someone, not a consultant, on the team of the company
Hmm.
that can call that into question and say, hey, and overcome that sunk cost fallacy or whatever you want to call it. It makes people very comfortable, I think. And that's a great thing. But again, who's going to say, man, this wasn't the right way? We don't need to put this machine here. It needs to go over there.
Yeah,
So,
that's a debatable conversation always, right? Yeah, I was actually amazed when I understood that, oh, you know what? If you don't just probably do stuff, though you add efficiency in one aspect of the line, you might actually slow other things down. I
oh,
got
all
that
right.
out.
It's a communication chain, right?
Yeah.
It's parts moving through a system, it's information moving through a
Hmm.
system, moving through a system.
Hmm.
So if you speed one part of that process up, but you don't have the framework to keep that speed going throughout all the other level branches of your organization, yeah, it's problematic. So AI, robots working with robots, it could probably work, but finding the translation between where we need our AI to make our people as good as they can be,
Hmm.
that's the product. I think if you could answer that, you've got an award-winning product. But I haven't seen that respect to the people, at least with some of the vendors that we've had here in my neck of the woods just yet. And that tribal knowledge is important. And if you play the game where, yeah, we know what we're doing, you got to really be ready to roll those dice. I think Red Star has gone to, we're not ready to roll that yet. So as AI grows, we're going to keep growing. We're going to use that as a framework of what we know. And hopefully one of these days, just like our robots, just like our machines, we can put that to use here.
I think between all of this, I would like to get your perspective because I know you're a very people-driven person and you have a lot of respect to your team and you hold them high. Help me understand in these kind of technology transformations for the company or even running large technology initiatives, how do you manage the human element? What is your philosophy? What is your principle? And what has worked for you?
I get in every meeting I can and I listen every time I can with respect to my own authority. It's again, it's that translation, right? You've got all these tools, you've got all these people trying to sell you things, but sometimes things can be solved with just making sure you capture the right perspective.
Yes.
Trying to get the filter, you got to work on your information filter as well. People are going to tell you things that don't matter. You got to get back to the facts. When you're with the quality people, you need to learn how to talk. IT is this master chameleon of information, or at least that's what I try to see it as. You got to speak like a quality person to the quality people. You got to take an engineer to the engineering people. But the thing that you're trying to look for is you're trying to look for the importance. And it's so easy to say the important thing is to get the part out of the factory floor. You're going to get burnout that way. I've seen the plant work that way. That was 3 years ago. It was a lot of stress. We lost a lot of good people. We lost a lot of good tribal knowledge too. We had a big brain drain. You have to respect other people's perspectives and you have to support it. You're not the one making the decision. They
Yes.
might be making the decision, or you all might be making that decision. It's hard to find the authority in the room sometimes. There is the fear of there's too many hands in the bucket. Yeah. And that's just where you have to take chances or depend on your own ability to cut through some of the noise. But yet, I think that's key to success is making sure that everyone's represented and understanding how that system flows through everything you need to do. Something that happens in quality can very often affect your people in shipping. Shipping's a pretty high turnaround position. Are
Yes, it
you
is.
training? Are you training your shipping people up to quality standards
Yep.
and driving that information, pushing that information? We don't want people to do that. We don't want somebody sitting on an inbox. You got to stay diligent all day. You got to push this email out. We want that information to be largely available, understood, and the importance understood. And again, it's not always just that part. Sometimes it's about, hey guys, this is really going to help us. We're all putting in overtime on Fridays, on weekends. If we do this, we can still remain profitable and we don't have to do all this overtime. So speak everybody's language, dangle a carrot in front of the engineers like you have to, and get quality to actually go talk to engineering is sometimes a bit of a problem. But you got to be the glue of your team. I really hope that if anybody takes anything away from me being here, is glue for your team. You're the foundation, you're the glue, you're the translator, you're so many roles that have nothing to do with what's on a computer. That has to be second nature to you. You have to live, breathe, and eat tech, but
Yep.
you have to learn people all the time, and they're always changing.
Yep. I think I had one other guest on my podcast. He was telling me, hey, the three things that constitute a business, whatever you call it, it's people, culture, and tech. This is how he said it. Most of the times, it's what kind of people you have and what culture they have between them. And then the tech comes to me. That's what he said. I can see a clear correlation between what I've heard then what I hear now. And I keep hearing this in companies that have done turnarounds, that have done really transformational shifts in their own company or how they felt with a bigger setback in their own business plan or whatever. Thank you for sharing that. I think a couple of conversations we had, I always feel how much you value your team and how much you're a people person. I think if there is one thing I've learned from our conversation is I've learned a very different meaning or a differing impact for the word translator because I think
It's always going to change.
most of the times that's what is happening. That's what probably even I am doing at my work. Most of the people are doing at their work. So it drives them to have an understanding that, hey, you know what? This is the actual impact that I'm leaving here with this team or in this conversation or with this deliverable. I think if we can have that level of awareness, that's probably the way to build the right culture with the right people.
I hope so. I really do. I think the market's going to be catching up to that real soon. I really do think this is the rebirth of a lot of things.
Hmm.
And I'm very hopeful for the future, not just for Red Star, but the local area,
Hmm.
Indiana. We're seeing the changes on the floor. We're seeing grants for robotics and AI. That's just translating what you do every day to a piece of technology. So, yeah, I'm glad that you took that away and I hope other people do. And Adi, I really appreciate you having me on. It
Thank
was
you.
great talking to you again.
Same here.
Hope to have you back soon, maybe sometime in the future. But thank you so much. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
You as well, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.